obviously have to have a 1 in front of the x squared. If we don't, we divide everything by the number in front of the x squared. Since I have the number in front of the x squared here, my first step is to subtract 20. I've got to get the constant to the other side so I can create my binomial squared. We create the binomial squared by taking half the middle term and squaring it. It's coincidence here, it's 4. That's because half of 4 is 2 and 2 squared is 4. Any other number would not be the same number in front of x. So please don't confuse that. Then we factor it, and it always factors to a binomial squared. It's always half the middle term with its sign. Once we're here, we can take the square root of both terms. The square root of x plus 2 squared is x plus 2. The square root of negative 16 is plus or minus 4i. And then we have to finish the problem. We subtract 2 on both sides, and this is my answer. All right, now in this one here, we do have a number in front of the x squared, so we need to divide everything by that number, including the 0. It's good form. X squared minus 6x minus 14 equals 0. I'm going to add 14 to both sides. X squared minus 6x equals 14. Now it's half the middle term squared. Half of negative 6 is negative 3, but when I square it, it's positive. So we always square that middle term. It always makes it positive. We're always adding to both sides here. When I factor this, though, the sign matters. It's x minus 3 squared. It's not x plus 3. All right, we do keep the sign here when we factor it. And that equals 23. This works out nicely because you really can't take the square root of 23. There's nothing really to do with it. So it's x minus 3 equals plus or minus, and we leave it as root 23. Add 3 to both sides. 3 plus or minus root 23. And that's our answer. So, once again, there's not a 1 in front of the x squared, so I got to force that. Divide everything by 4. X squared plus 2x plus 10 equals 0. I'm moving the 10 over. X squared plus 2x, I'm moving it over by subtracting it, equals a negative 10. X squared, half of 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1. When I factor this, I get x plus 1 squared equals a negative 9. We take the square root of both sides. And I'm left with x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3i. And we finish with negative 1 plus or minus 3i. Okay, so here we got to divide everything by 3. Now the tough thing about this problem is this. Obviously we're going to move the 5 over. So we're at x squared plus 3x equals a negative 5. So now the challenge is this. What's half of 3? Well, that's 3 halves, and when we square it, it's 9/4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my negative 5 with a common denominator of 4. I'm going to change negative 5 into negative 20 over 4, and I'm adding 9/4 to that. People always want to ask, well, how'd you get the negative 20 over 4? Negative 5 over 1, and I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by 4. So now I get a common denominator that I can add. Now, when we factor it, if you looked at every other problem, when we factor this, this term is always what? Half of this term. It's no different. It's always half the middle term. That's why I like us to know that fact, because it makes it a lot easier when you have to factor something with a constant that's a fraction. It's always going to be half the middle term. Here, we're going to get a negative 11 over 4. And now we're going to take the square root of both sides. X plus 3 halves squared, square root of negative 11 over 4. We're left with x plus 3 halves. The square root of negative 11 is plus or minus I root 11. The square root of 4 is 2. You break that radical up, you take the radical of the top and the bottom. And then we finish the problem with negative 3 halves plus or minus I root 11 over 2. And that's your answer.